Hey guys, welcome to the Grompus Movie Podcast, the only movie podcast devoted entirely to Gromp that sometimes has to record episodes, but we don't do it very often. We're going to be talking about the Manchurian Candidate today. Joining me, as always, Bosco. Introducto yourself, Bosco.
Hi guys, it's me.
And our newest addition, really only addition ever, to the regular
Oh, what about
casting crew.
Kirby from
Oh my god. Bring this
forgot
up.
Kirby already?
That was not a permanent thing. That's a
It was
self-contained
he was
bit.
an
I'm an
addition.
installment,
That was
like a dictatorship.
It's a self-contained bit to let me do a bad Australian accent under the pretense of talking about the Oscars. Psych is here to be multicultural. As you know, we are all from English-speaking countries.
Are we?
And
We've got the world
therefore, we are the most multicultural podcast out there. Because we're all from different ones, at least. As you might be able to infer by our fantastic new Season 2 cover. Because it is Season 2.
Season 2, that's like season
Season
1
2?
plus
So
1, 2.
Season 1... hold on, let me run those numbers.
Run the numbers.
You're saying if the first season was the first season.
Yeah.
And then we infer that we mark a break. We begin a secondary season.
Oh yeah, additional.
An additional
Was
season.
it 11 episode seasons? I think we're doing for a nice odd number.
It's roughly by year, kind of. So season 2 will be what we put out at the end of last year, and whatever we actually managed
We're gonna
to
be
make
going for
in
30
2015.
videos this year.
Oh hell! I mean, whew.
It's possible.
It's not. That's 3 videos a month. That's once a week.
I know, I can do a write-in contribution.
Write it.
Out.
Yeah, everyone go check our blog.
We can start a blog. Oh, new addition to season 2. We're gonna have actual upload abilities for our podcast, so you can actually listen to it like an actual podcast.
Have we figured out what sites we're gonna do that?
I'm looking at we can talk about this later, but one of them looked really cool because it actually ranks them and stuff.
Yeah.
It's called Podomatic.
So why don't we say this? Whatever upload thing we decide on, or whichever, as in multiple,
It'll be in the
perhaps,
linky dink on the description below.
it will be in the description. Yeah. And
Go
if
follow us
you
on FaceFriend.
if you want to take our ramblings on the go, for whatever mildly psychotic reason, most likely, you will now have that option. Anyways, let's dive into the movie. Manchurian Candidate, not the Denzel version, was released in 1962. It's very much a movie about the height of the Cold War, kind of placed. It's in the kind of pseudo. They don't talk about McCarthy in the movie, but it's in that kind of era. It follows the
Yeah.
Korean War.
The McCarthy era.
The
They have
McCarthy
Iceland,
era.
which is the obvious parody of McCarthy.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when it was released, it came out right during the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis, which, historically, context-wise, really helped cement it as a film of its time. There were some very real fears about the Cold War during the
Yeah, they're
Cuban
real
Missile
good
Crisis.
fears.
In this movie, there are some very real fears that come to fruition. Plot of the movie. I guess you guys you have anything you want to say, or should we dive in and talking about what
Yes.
happens? Yes. What's that?
Okay, so if you had the choice between incest or necrophilia, what would you choose? Put that in a question below. We'll look over it and we'll add it to our our database. Okay.
Yeah, sure. If you guys would like to comment on that, go
I
ahead.
don't remember what our consensus was last time, so
Yeah, I mean,
I'm pretty sure.
I don't want to
incest
say
is
something
the
that
worst.
is the opposite of what I said last time.
wait, what did we
That
decide
was
on?
pretty coin flip.
I've been deciding.
I
That
think
incest
I
is the
think we
worst.
said necrophilia is worse.
No, you said that. I never said that.
Yeah.
I would never agree to that.
Why, of all the things to bring back
Yeah,
from the lost
I guess.
recording, necrophilia's got to be worse.
No,
I
how's it
haven't really
worse?
read about any
Because
weird
you can have
examples.
incest without knowing it's incest. You cannot have necrophilia without.
Doesn't make it any less worse.
Necrophilia.
Well, you could. They could die during.
They're called death erections. Like
Ugh.
in Clerks, that lady had sex with that guy in the bathroom. Remember?
In Clerks. Solid
Clerks.
evidence.
Death erections. There you go. Done. Can we just move on? I shouldn't have brought it up because I knew you.
Yeah, of all the things to bring back. All right. So this movie, the two main characters are Major Bennett Marco, played by Frank Sinatra, and Staff Sergeant
Frankie baby.
Frankie Baby, and Staff Sergeant Raymond Shaw, played by Lawrence Harvey. The two of them serve in a unit who's captured in Korea.
Not the unit with black guy from 24, but a unit.
Sure. Not the G unit either. I feel
Or
I should
yes.
clarify.
Yes.
Basically what happens is they are captured and brainwashed in a Soviet, in Manchuria, Soviet kind of, I don't know, what is it, like a secret intelligence base or some shit.
Yeah.
We'll have
But
to
and when
assume
they
that.
come back, they believe that Raymond Shaw, who is trained as a sleeper agent for the Soviets, had
That's a great
saved the
guy.
lives of all but one of the platoon, or all but two of the platoon, whereas in fact Shaw killed the two of the platoon, and then they were returned without any memories. And so the film kind of details Shaw attempting to return to society, and Marco. Marco gets a new job in an intelligence position, and it deals with them trying to track down if Shaw's a sleeper agent, and the type of shenanigans Shaw gets up to. Probably won't go too much deeper into a summary then, but obviously fair warning as always, there will be spoilers if things come up.
Turn off your ears.
Yeah, turn off your ears, ship them off to fucking Laos, and maybe you won't hear from there. But yeah, you should know. Just because we are not going to go deep in now,
Don't worry, we're gonna go deep.
Spoiled.
Going.
Watch the movie first.
I always go deep. Go deep or go home. That's what I always say.
Do you? All right. What would you guys? Do you have anything you want to bring up to start? I can jump into one of my points. It's your guys' call here.
Oh well. I guess last time we touched on the value of this film as in that it was good for its time and it
That's what you
set
guys
the
think.
precedent for films to. It was like the first of its genre.
Yeah, that's one thing. Well, this guy, John Frankenheimer, who directed the film, this was kind of his genre. This is definitely the most notable film he's done, in my opinion, in terms of lasting posterity and probably also quality, although I haven't seen them all. And a lot of the things that we now see as genre conventions of suspense thrillers, political thrillers, etc., are very much, they kind of appear early here for the first time. And it also has value in its time in the sense that I think a way that it helps it excel over the Denzel Washington remake or whatever, however you want to call it, placing the story in a different time period, is that regardless of, I mean, it's possible, for all we know, the sleeper threat from like, I don't know, North Korea today could be more real than it was back then. But culturally,
Wow.
people definitely felt, they definitely felt more threat during the Cold War era. The
Yeah.
setting reflects that.
Yeah.
I want to add a little thing about that. In the unit, there actually is an episode about North Korean sleeper agents. So this might be based off the. You think the unit's copying this?
John Frankenheimer do the unit? You think?
The unit?
Let's see. The unit. The
No.
unit.
No.
Could it be?
No.
Dennis Haysbert, he's black. His name's Jones Blaine. There's Scott Foley, and there's some other
Good for
people.
him.
Wasn't
And
the,
there's
the
Rod-
unit's like a 2000? Why are you guys even considering this? John
'Cause-
Frankenheimer died in 2002.
Well, I mean, this was developed in 2006 or 2009. He could have wrote the paper for it. Let's look it up. Let's look it up.
Well, he wasn't a writer. He was director.
Oh my God,
so-
he did. Did.
Fuck off.
It's based off the Inside Delta Force, the story of American Elite Counter-Terrorist Unit by Eric L. Haney. That's his pen name, isn't it?
You cracked the code. Well done. It's based. Speaking of based off, to get back on track, I guess another thing I'd like to touch upon is the fact that this movie is based off a book. I haven't had a chance to read the book. It's actually funny because unfortunately we had to redo this one. It's been a couple weeks, and so I probably could have had time to read
They
the
don't know
book
about
since
that.
then, but I didn't. So I'm going to say the same thing I did last time, which I didn't read the whole book, but I did get a copy of it to scan for certain things. And one of the things was, one of my issues with the movie, small one, is that at the beginning of the film, there's a voiceover, there's a narration elephant.
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 There's an elephant in the narration.
There's
and
an
nobody's talking about it.
there's an narration element that does not reoccur past probably like maybe 15, 20 minutes in at most. And so I looked up and to see the narration wasn't taken verbatim from the book, but the narration is very much in the same style as the book in terms of perspective and things. Yeah, my issue with that is that it felt really clunky in the film. This film is actually very good at exposition, and it does a lot of it through what I felt was a really, like we talked about this film being time appropriate device, which is the television. A lot of points in the film you'll see a television on that will give you information about kind of the wider political structure, what not background characters, but like characters outside of Shaw and Bennett are up to, since you actually don't see too many scenes that Shaw or Bennett wasn't present for. So the television's really good at doing that, and also it's a major tool of what was his name? Shaw's mother's husband.
Iceland.
Senator
Iceland. Senator Iceland. Yeah, you know that from what we can tell, Senator Iceland's character is not very smart, but he is a magnetic personality on the television to some degree, and even if he's
like JFK.
even if he's a laughing stock amongst like kind of the more serious political people, in terms of the American people, they see him as he's gonna stop the commies and bring back freedom to America. Yeah, I think the television, if they could have incorporated some of the information through, maybe not the television in some cases, but that was one of my issues that they should have. They were very good at exposition in some cases, and so the voiceover felt a little heavy-handed. That early part of the film.
Do you think it'd be a plus to use a variety of tools? I mean, how would you feel if they'd done too much TV? Or that was done with the TV? Would that have been okay? Well,
if it was all the thing, I wouldn't mind if you do a variety. You do it like more through TV, as long as it's all kind of in universe. It's when you start splitting the like meta or whatever, like exposition elements, such as the voiceover with the in universe ones. But I honestly saw television and the media as one of the kind of themes of the film. Like, you can go even a little deeper if you want, and suggest that in people's own ways, their intake of media and the television influences them, not to the extremes that the Russian sleeper agent brainwashing does, but in a similar pattern where they're trained to react to things certain ways based off the perception of the media. So I kind of thought, I didn't mind, they could have put more television aspects in this film for me. I thought that, yeah, it was an interesting theme of the film that reoccurred, at least from my perspective. I noticed it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything you guys would like to bring up?
I think what you said is full of shit, but that's cool.
Okay.
I didn't notice. I didn't notice the TVs. I noticed the TVs like.
There was a handful of times. It wasn't that. I don't think it was what you were trying to. You're trying to make it some sort of symmetry or some sort of metaphor bullshit.
Symmetry.
Whatever.
No, I don't.
I don't know what it is, but it's what you sound just sound like bullshit, and I hate when people do that kind of stuff.
You present it as like weave
like
through the story and craft,
and it wasn't.
It didn't. I mean, it didn't come across that way. It seemed incidental, but I mean,
I would say it's the primary.
It just sounds like you're full of yourself and you're actually trying to sound smarter than you actually are.
It's the primary.
Whoa.
It's the primary form of exposition in the film. I would say of third-party exposition.
I'll give you that, but that's like.
Disagree?
But I wouldn't give you what you're trying to compare it to the brainwashing.
The bigger thing? I think that's a fair comparison.
That's a stupid comparison.
Why is that?
Because it wasn't even made. You're just bullshitting it. This is
why? Yeah, I said it's for me. Did I not use the language for me?
Okay. The first time we see the TV is with Iceland calls a press conference. Is that an acceptable use of TV? Is that because you see them filming it, the press there and taking notes.
And that kind of sets up when he reappears on TVs later. Like, I don't think that's an unreasonable suggestion to make.
Oh yeah, but this movie was taken in World War I because you can tell because they only talk about the war. They don't talk about what war it was. You're not specifically talking about it, and they don't really talk about the guns and stuff. I mean,
I actually think it might be. I think they talk about the war. I'm pretty sure it's referring to the 30 Years' War. I'm pretty sure this movie takes place in the 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's more accurate because there was television back then. 100 years. I mean, newspapers are like televisions now anyways, right? It's like Gutenberg Press was really good and stuff. All that stuff. Whatever. And then, when they're talking about the Manchuria, they're actually talking about the moon because that's when the aliens came in and developed some technology for our Nazi moon bases in space. Like fuck. No, that's just how it sounded to me when you said that crap.
I don't think it's unreasonable to try and... No, I'm not gonna edit this.
I'm stupid. I'm sorry.
What do you think about when you watch... Do you ever try and draw it?
Well, this is what I was thinking when you were mentioning that. I was thinking about all these freaking movies where they, say, for instance, Shaun of the Dead, 28 Days Later. They use all the exposition, but what they do is they fast forward. They have they'll have a bunch of newscasts, but they'll go through all the news channels and do
news
small
montage.
Yeah, the news montage.
That's a bit of that's kind of a cliche at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying. I think that was just an earlier news montage. That's all I think it was, and then nothing. There's no comparison to brainwash or anything like that. I just think it was used to give them information as quickly as possible and help you get straight to that action or whatever they couldn't discuss in like anything that was narrated or whatever that you needed to discuss to people, but you can't really tell them, like, you can't like step aside and say, okay, this is what was going on, the exposition, obviously. And then that's what it was used for, and I think that's all it was for. It was no comparison for brainwashing. That's my argument, and I think that's what it was. I don't know.
To make you kind of understand where I'm coming from, think about
I know you're coming from Canada.
If you had to look at it from the opposite direction, if you had to take an aspect of the lives of or just even like general like Western civilization life for an average person that relates to, like, none of us have been brainwashed by Russian spies, right?
Not recently, no.
No. So what do you think most closely relates to that type of effect, like what I said, where you're kind of conditioned, not intentionally necessarily, to react to things certain ways?
MK Ultra. That's what I would think about. The only thing I can actually think about. I mean, we don't think
the everyday American.
Oh well, this isn't everyday Americans. People being brainwashed either. I don't know where that's coming from.
But that's the whole point.
What's their point? You're comparing, because now you're comparing a specialist to like a generalist. That is, what the fuck are you talking about? If your example is going to be given,
exceptional events in films. Typically, you can relate them to, not exactly, like I said, I don't think it's an exact parallel, but you can relate them to mundane things that occur in lives. That's what gives films like a sense of relatability, despite, I don't know how fantastic the elements can
Do the Right Thing.
Huh?
The movie Do the Right Thing.
That's on the list.
No, do you know the movie Do the Right
I'm
Thing?
familiar.
Okay.
Is that...
You know when the black guy's like bringing the boombox with them and everywhere, and it's really dated.
Okay, sure, yes.
All right, so that's basically what I'm hearing from you.
Okay, so Bosco thought my argument was dumb bum. I thought my argument was fair.
I thought that. I guess I'll agree with you a bit, Prince, but not with the whole brainwashing thing. I mean, it's like
that's what the other going.
It's another aspect of the campaign that the communists are trying to use, is this calling out of other communists and diverting the blame and starting their own mind games. And it's part of a greater plan. You realize the plan with Shaw ties into that plan. So it does open up the world a bit, and adds more to the fear and paranoia.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're getting like subliminal messages from TVs or anything like that.
I don't know what I'm saying, but
what I'm saying is that culture conditions the way people react to things in a similar way to brainwashing can condition the way people react to things.
I don't think the TV was used enough to justify it being there in more than one scene. I think like one scene or like more than what they had, because it wasn't consistent. It wasn't like, oh, here's what they're doing now.
That's what I'm saying, man. I'm like, what are you doing?
It's just like, oh, there happens to be a TV show. There would be.
But you got to think, there's very few scenes that Shaw or Marco are not present for.
We got that part. We're not here with your brainwashing part. Like,
oh my god, that's what Psyk was talking about at that point. You're talking about the primary. There's either two arguments are the brainwashing thing that you're like really fucking stuck on, or the primary means of third-party exposition, to which I would argue...
It wasn't a primary mean, it was a mean. I agree. I think it was very clever how they did exposition a lot of the ways. Like, it wasn't overdone in one method. They used multiple methods, which I think is adequate. It keeps me interested. It keeps... I won't detract from the...
And that comes back to the very first thing, the main point about the actual film before you got stuck on this, which is that I felt the voiceover was out of place compared to the elements of exposition, like the TV, that they did well.
It's an intro. It's just what they did to introduce everything. That's adequate. That's just usually what they do with theater and stuff. So, like, you gotta understand, like, this is the '60s. They're still trying to get a standard generalization going. They still have yet to make their generalistic, aspect out. So they're still trying to mess around. They're trying to actually be unique right now. But once they get by the numbers, like in the 80s and 90s, by the numbers, this is how we do films. That's when you start losing all that cool, messing around bits. And actually making movies interesting. Like, the development process, the editing, all that stuff was interesting. The movie itself was kind of bland. But the actual, way they went about it was interesting, for sure. But, like, that's the stuff that's been lost today. And that's the only thing I like about it, is what's been lost. Other than that, I mean, what you're arguing is that it wasn't consistent. That's what makes it good. That's the only thing that makes it good.
I wouldn't say that's the only positive aspect of the film. So let's move on to some. Let's get off this fucking thing that we've talked about for probably 10 minutes now and talk a little more about positive aspects to the film.
I just told you positive aspects.
Okay, so Psych, do you have anything you liked particularly in the film?
Aside from particular scenes, just general.
You could talk about particular scenes if you want to. I think I'm more or less going to do that.
Well, I did like the train scene. You guys know, and I thought the dialogue for that scene was just perfect.
It's the best.
And like settling you in, and then making you realize everything isn't as it seems, and it certainly made me think something strange was going on. It's not been explained or confirmed, I guess, in the novel or the film. It's just left there for you to interpret, and I like that.
It's like it kind of explained. Like in the novel, it means nothing, and that's like I think the whole point of it.
It means nothing, but it's very weird. Like
I like it though. I like it. That means nothing.
Just to clarify for people who maybe haven't seen the movie or aren't familiar with this kind of perspective, what you're talking about is the subtle implication or whatever that it's possible Frank Sinatra, Marco's, the woman he meets on the train and future wife is his agent, or what do they call it?
Controller.
Yeah, handler, foreign handler, possibly based on the kind of strangeness of the dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it leaves it. I would agree. It leaves it very much open-ended enough that you could end the film thinking she's just his normal wife, or that she's definitely a communist, and everywhere in between on the spectrum. So.
Yeah, there's funny dialogue in there as well. You know, that start off with the "Are you a Chinaman? Have you been long in the railway business? I was a railway worker. I was one of the Chinese railway workers." And then she asks him later, like, if he's Arabic.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say for my thing I enjoyed. I thought the where they introduced elements of humor to this film, particularly kind of like black comedy. I thought that was really well done.
Racist.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I will have to go check the BET list to figure out exactly what they did well. Yeah, like I even saw a few parallels to Doctor Strangelove, which comes out a couple years after this. But yeah, I love the scene where it's kind of the flashback to their brainwashing, where they're all sitting in the camp, but they're surrounded by various Soviet and Korean and Chinese specialists or whatever on the thing, and in their minds they see like a bunch of like middle-aged Southern belles type things. And the scene that kills me is when Shaw gets up to strangle one of I forget if it was the strangling or the shooting of one of the other soldiers who's there, one of the soldiers who doesn't make it back. And he gets up and really politely asks one of the other men to shift his chair for him to go strangle the guy. I thought that might have been my favorite moment in the film, just because it felt so well done. It felt really surreal, but like it's obviously we know that really happened in the universe of the film.
Yes.
Yeah. That was another scene as well that I thought it was good at easing you into it, because they had elements of the analysts and the people who are surveying them and controlling the behavior sort of bleed into the environment of the Southern Belle flower. Was it, they were talking about flowers?
Right, yeah. It wasn't.
Yeah,
they didn't keep the two kind of split universes always consistent. There's kind of like breakthroughs or something.
Yeah, so it sort of represents the mind of the people. Maybe they're remembering that. I mean, it was a dream, right? But the way the scene was presented was remembering that, or was it as it was actually happening?
I forget if it was either. Because there is an incidental soldier who's in their unit. The reason Marco starts tracking down Shaw is because he has the same reaction to this guy, where he says they lie about basically Marco's
the black guy
or Shaw's quality as a soldier. Yeah, the black guy when directly asked, but they know what they're saying is kind of wrong.
Yeah, it would make sense if it was a memory, and it's sort of like bled through in dreams. The subconscious had sort of brought it up.
That's the way I think you're supposed to look at it. It's either, I forget if it might be presented directly as, because Marco wakes up like kind of with the, like heavy breathing, like nightmare dream. I think at least one scene, and I forget whose dream if it was presented as one of their dreams exactly. But yeah, the idea is that this is their memory, and part of it's right, part of it's not quite there. Yeah.
So yeah, do you think it's weird that they let the token black guy be one of the survivors?
Well, I would, I would say the majority of the unit was a survivor, and there's nothing in this film that really makes. I mean, I guess you could argue that he is like the only black guy in the unit, but I wouldn't say he does something that only that you require a black character to do. Like, I think race was pretty irrelevant to his character.
I was asking a question.
Yep.
Don't want to make it all deep and stuff.
I'm sorry if that was too deep for you.
What happened, Bosco?
What do you mean?
This is what you asked for.
What did I ask for?
This is what you wanted.
What did I want? I don't remember.
Maybe Psyk's your foreign handler, dude. He's controlling you right now.
Why not?
Alright. Is there, we might as well jump into things we didn't like about the film. I kind of mentioned I was not a big fan of the voiceover. Is there anything in particular you guys did not enjoy?
I didn't like how, when they showed the televisions, like, I didn't like the metaphor they used for brainwashing.
Thank you. Yes, we're clear on that.
Oh, yeah. I didn't like the choice of actor for Raymond Shaw and his mother. For me, it was pretty jarring to hear their English accents.
Oh, yeah. Shaw's, I definitely found this more of an issue with Lawrence Harvey as Shaw than with Angela Lansbury as his mother. But there are a few scenes, especially I think when he's kind of in his own apartment, where he definitely has a bit of a shaky accent. Like, I legitimately thought, did he move to London? And Bosco is playing balloons, for those of you who are wondering why his IQ is maybe a few points below today. Yeah, Shaw, there's a few scenes in this apartment where I was like legit wondering, has it been like 10 years or something? He moved to London and adopted an accent in the meantime?
Yeah. For me, it was worse at the start, introducing the character. I was thinking, is this sort of like some English Foreign Legion troop for the Americans? Why is he getting a Medal of Honor? Okay.
Because, it can happen in Korea, dude.
And then it was hard for me to believe that they'd be able to use him as a propaganda tool if he was.
If he was British.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think what they were is like kind of upper class WASP New Englander. But yeah, accent definitely not super consistent. That's kind of something that I guess happens with the
movie making process.
Well, especially back then when you'd be getting a lot of stage actors. You'd be getting a lot of, this. I think Lawrence Harvey, he was hyped up to be Olivier. Was this guy who was kind of hyped up to be Olivier's successor? No, I'm thinking of the guy in Alexander, I think. But, you did get these British stage actors who
can act.
Who can act, who are probably, based on like Shakespeare and stuff.
So you're saying they're getting the job not because of how they can speak, but how they act?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. Obvious.
Yes.
Obvious. Okay.
Obvious, yeah.
Obvious.
But,
goddamn.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to do an American accent in Shakespeare very much.
Don't have to do an Italian one either.
Very true.
You could, though. I mean, think about it. In The Godfather, they didn't do one ever.
In The Godfather.
They put peaches in their mouth.
You come to me. You come to me. Talk about Italian accents on the day of my daughter's wedding.
Ugly fucking daughter.
All right. I'm trying to think if there's anything in particular I didn't like at this point. I think
Bosco had something
largely well done
to say about the ending.
Yeah, I believe Bosco. You want to jump in with your issues
about that
ending?
Again? I just think
we do because we spent.
Oh my god!
You feel strongly about it, so it should go in the podcast.
Okay, so. Pretty much, like, you guys are watching this podcast review because you're interested in this movie, not because you're looking for an actual review. You're just saying, man, I was on YouTube, I like that Manchurian Candidate, not starring the black guy, starring the Frank Sinatra, old blue eyes, I'm gonna look for a little review. Oh, look, greatest movie podcast, this better be good. Oh, look, they're talking about it. I hope they talk about that ending. We'll hear about the ending, here you go. Okay, so that ending, man, I gotta tell you about this ending. Like, I just, how, like, you have all these movies and stuff from, like, starting from the start of, let's skip some of the, let's include silent films. Silent films have that endings, too, sometimes. Like, it just wasn't good. Like, Metropolis had some shitty ending, too. I didn't really enjoy Metropolis ending, but that's another story. That's not even on the list, but it should have been. Anyways. Okay, so, like, how, like, and have these endings that just wrap everything up all nice and tight, and it's just like, oh, there you go, here you go, you wasted, like, an hour and whatnot, and now you got a 5-minute ending that could have been surmised in, like, a black screen with text. Like, that's how you feel. And that's how it was to me. Like, they just go and kill him, and that's it. Okay, you're done. Like, fuck, I don't care.
And so I would argue that, especially if you're saying it could be replaced by a...
Oh, yeah, you can replace
black
it by...
text screen. And
you can do the reverse of that. You can add more scenes to it. You can add like a build-up instead of explaining how he got in there, which was I think dumb. Which again was a black text screen. Is you could just explain it. You can show him actually sneaking in the robes. I think that would be funny. I think that'd be cute. I think that'd be neat. I think that'd be nifty. But like they don't do that. They don't do that. They don't even go the extra mile. They go half the mile. I think they went over budget, and I think that's what they do. They film things in scenes and in order because that's what you're supposed to do sometimes instead of filming where the most expensive scenes. So they went cheap. They went cheap on the climax, and the climax feels cheap. It was cheap, and it fucking felt cheap, and it was like, I don't want to, people are already at this point where we got their money. They're not going to leave. They're not going to ask for their money back. We got their 15 cents for popcorn.
Not going to ask for their money back.
Back then, that prices were cheap, but that's a lot of money. 15 cents back there, you can buy like a Walmart greeting card. That's expensive. Okay, so that's how it feels like.
Okay, are you gonna allow me to rebuttal?
You can rebuttal all you want. It's not gonna change the way I view your crappy situation, man.
All right. Speaking of inconsistent accents, that whole last 4 sentences from Bosco. So I would argue that one of the reasons that this became kind of the genre convention definer for the young, like kind of political thriller genre is that the ending is very expertly paced, and what Bosco's talking about with like dragging it out, that you have to keep a certain level of tension in this scene, and if you drag out a scene too long, look at the end of fucking Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. The big climactic lightsaber fight goes for like 15 minutes too long, and it just gets full of CGI bullshit, and the scene loses the tension.
Look at the entire Revenge of the Sith. Look at the entire first three episodes of the
honestly, none of those films
trilogy.
Are good, but
they're all bad. They're all poorly made in general. There's not a good aspect about it. So what are you trying to say? You're trying to say this bad movie's bad ending is bad? Obviously, it's bad. Like it's just a bad movie. It's nothing. There's no good thing about it.
Yeah,
this is what I'm talking about. By the numbers. By the fucking numbers editing. Oh, we do the same thing. Same crossfades. Same stupid bullshit. And hope to God they pay us fucking money for it.
That was a very irrelevant tangent.
But no, that's what I was talking about before.
You're saying that I can't give an example for something just because it's in the middle
bad
of a bad
example
movie.
Because it's a bad movie. Talk about a good movie or an average movie that does it, not a terrible, atrocious movie that has everything about it bad.
Why?
I told you the pacing. I said this. I probably should have covered this up because I did go on a tangent when I was explaining it. But like the previous video, I was pretty concise about it, succinct. But I did say like the entire movie is pacing pretty slow, but it's going on a nice thing. But it's very quick. It feels like like a premature ejaculation on that end. That's like the climax. It just feels like really quick. And I don't mind it being stretched out of it. I wouldn't mind it, or maybe done a little bit differently. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just like something stupid. I don't care or whatever. To me I just felt unsatisfied. It wasn't a satisfying experience for me. I wish I can go back and say, you know what, I'm not going to watch the last 10 minutes of this film because I probably feel better in my head. But like, maybe I'll go give it another watch. I'll watch the Denzel Washington for the last 10 minutes, replace it in and out.
The Denzel Washington version has what I would argue to be kind of a weak ending because...
Oh, it was a B. Oh, don't ruin it for me now,
Okay. But it changes things in a way that make Shaw's character a lot less satisfying, I would say.
I don't think his character was satisfying to begin with. I think Shaw is...
Okay, well, whatever level you thought was at in this movie...
Frank Sinatra is the best character, and so did his female companions, Main Squeeze. Those are the two best characters. Oh, and Shaw's girlfriend, she was interesting too. But other than that, the rest of them are kind of boring and bland. And the Chinaman and the Korean guy was pretty cool. Those guys are cool. Oh, those guys are cool. But like, everyone else was just like,
I have a bunch of things I have to hit, and because you're doing a lot of interjecting. So firstly, I would say that Shaw's I don't think Shaw's character was boring. I thought Shaw as a person was boring, and that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Secondly, I would say that your argument that just because you can't use bad aspect of a bad movie to exemplify something bad, that's completely wrong. Because that's exactly how you should
feel that anyways. Because if that climax was in any other movie,
I knew I wasn't going to get
it. And if they did it correctly, and they built it up right, if you did it, there's a way you could build it up correctly. I mean, we got to take out the Star Wars universe because this is whole other issue. Because Star Wars is not meant to be some fucking fly-ass gymnastics bullshit.
Here's how you could do that climax right. You made it fucking like 20 minutes shorter.
Hey man, you can make it as long as you want, as long as it's fulfilling, and as long as
talk about the Manchurian candidate.
You can't.
Star Wars.
So the point, because this ties into the bigger point.
This is politics. This is fucking, Jimmy Jam bullshit. This is like, stuff you don't want to listen to.
Help me, Lord, please.
Jar Jar Binks was, bullshit character. You don't need Jar Jar Binks. I don't know why he was part of the series.
So yeah, let's get rid of Shaw and not have a story.
No, I didn't say get rid of fucking Shaw. I said his character was boring. I said he was boring. I thought there's a lot of characters boring. I think
that was the point of his character.
It doesn't change that he's still boring. I mean, what the fuck you want me to say? Oh, he's less boring now that he's...
The character went through great tragedy. He was like an unsociable loner. He got brainwashed. He wasn't aware he was brainwashed. Then reunited with the lover's life. And he went through all of that.
I think there should have been more incest scenes, because that would have made the movie more interesting.
The incest is, implied.
We didn't even talk about the incest. Why did you guys not talk about the incest?
Because it's implied and it's like...
We implied the scene with our earlier discussion about incest and necrophilia.
Oh, did we? I think we did, actually.
We implied the implication.
Implied implication.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying, though, right?
But my argument is, if it's going to... You can only have a certain amount of beats in a climax. And, that's a very loose thing. But, there's only a certain amount of things that happen in the climax of a story. And if it's going to be a pretty simple thing, like this movie more or less comes down to two things in the climax. Marco deciding maybe he didn't save Shaw after all, he needs to go stop them, and Shaw lining up to shoot at Republican National Convention. And, the Star Wars one, for example, and goddammit, let me finish before you yell. That does one thing for 25 fucking minutes, and so the scene loses all tension. Now, that's... removed from the context of the movie, could that have been, a good moment for the story? Anakin and Obi-Wan's final fight. Sure.
Yes.
Sure,
oh my god.
Exactly, if it's done well.
If they done it right. My god. Even if it's 25 minutes, if they did it right, it would be well. But you just have a climax of that scene. Instead of the fighting being going on, it could have been broken up. You can break it up. There's a lot of movies, they break up scenes like that. That's all they had to do. But they didn't do it. They did it really poorly. It was just running around.
So the issue is all they're doing is hitting fucking lightsabers against each other for that whole time, and nothing really changes but the background. So...
Just boring background.
This film, you have to understand I don't understand how you make the ending long. I'd say they pretty much had the perfect amount of tension rising beats of Marco rushing through the convention trying to find where Shaw might be, and Shaw lining up for the shot, and they established prior what the moment's going to be and that Shaw is supposed to shoot. So it builds the tension up perfectly, and you as the audience know exactly where the breakpoint's going to be in the middle of the guy's speech, and at that moment what happens in the ending happens. But if it had been another 15 minutes of the guy talking and shoving, man, maybe I might shoot him, man. Maybe I might shoot this guy. Then the scene loses all its fucking tension.
No, I never said that. You just put words in my mouth.
You said you wanted it to be longer.
I said I think they should have built it up better. That's all I'm saying, man. Because this felt like
it was without adding length.
Well, no, I think they instead of focusing on Marco is the Frankie boy, right? I believe.
Frankie.
I'm gonna call him Frankie because that's the only way I know him by, and that's how I see him. Because fly me to the moon, and I will.
Yep, do it your way.
Pizza pie, Anyways, so Frankie, I call him Frankie because we're tight. Frankie here, Frankie. I think Frankie's a great character, but if they showed more of autistic, if they showed more of Audie, I think getting into the place, you could break up the scene, change viewpoints. I think the mystery of finding him was kind of redundant because he's going to be found out because he's going to fire a gunshot regardless.
Why? But that's not true. You don't know he's going to be found out, and the fact that Marco finds him doesn't change the end result of his decision.
Exactly. So that's I figured as much because that's
what maintains tension though. Is that if you know he's going to shoot, they wouldn't have Marco chasing him. The reason they have Marco chasing him is to put the doubt in the audience, just like the doubt's put into Marco. I don't know what this guy's going to do.
The audience is stupid. The audience is dumb.
Just because you know the ending doesn't mean you can disregard good storytelling, filmmaking techniques.
Not good storytelling, not good anything. It's just bland. It just wasn't interesting, man. I'm just saying, man.
Having Marco search for Shaw adds some urgency to the situation.
You know what was going to happen. You know when it was going to happen. They told you all this stuff in exposition. Exactly when it was going to happen. When are you going to do it? And so you just had to wait for the moment.
Yeah. So you have to wait for the moment he does it. But firstly, Marco doesn't know that. And secondly, Marco doesn't know when he's supposed to shoot the guy. That scene happens after the scene with the Red Queen.
Been over a year, so I don't.
But I think another element of this is that what are the consequences for sure if he does shoot the, not intended. Either way, other option, there are consequences for sure. So when I was watching it, I was certainly hoping that it would go well for sure. Whatever, however it went down, he would pick the right target for himself. A consequence that he was happy with, and it turned out that way, and the character redeemed himself in his mind. But I think the section of the scene was fine.
I don't know, man. If you really think about it, though, you know about how JFK died, right?
Yes, I believe we're familiar with that old folk tale. Yeah.
Okay, so you know about how the second shooter in the grassy knoll, right? That's what I believe. I don't think he had enough time to fire 2 shots. I think there's definitely had been a second shooter at that convention. Absolutely.
Well, that would be the sequel.
You've tied that into the film very well. Thanks. Yeah, that's it. I just want to touch on quickly. What Psych brought up, it's important as well. It's not only the climax for the plot, it's also the climax for Shaw's personal character development and story.
If you watch JFK by Oliver Stonehenge, you'll understand what I'm trying to say. Oh fuck!
Speaking of Oliver Stonehenge, I believe one of his films at least has been nominated for an Oscar. So let's talk about the Oscars. This movie was nominated for a couple.
Only a couple.
Only a couple. It was nominated for the Best Supporting Actress for Angela Lansbury. That's Shaw's mother. And it was nominated for Best Film Editing.
Yeah, I give that.
Yeah, I think that the editing, well, like we said, when it's kind of started giving genre convention definition, this definitely has the editing feel of a thriller, cutting between 2 things. Obviously not a new concept since the great train robbery of whenever, but cutting between Marco rushing through the kind of place and Shaw calmly lining up his rifle, etc. That's very much signature thriller style editing. It's very important this film had.
Thriller.
But it did not receive any wins. But 1962
got a couple nods.
Got a couple noms. So 1962, big year for movies. I think Lawrence of Arabia dominated the Academy Awards.
Oh, yeah,
Academy Awards pretty hard.
Oh yeah, great
that's
a good ending. Very, very fulfilling. Doesn't feel like you just got a handy.
Doesn't feel like you got a handy. Is that how you like to summarize your thoughts on the film, Bosco? It felt like you got a handy?
Could have been great.
Okay. I would say I largely enjoyed this film quite a bit. And if Bosco didn't, too bad. He's been brainwashed by television to think that.
I just don't care for it. That's the honest truth. I don't particularly care for it. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It just was eh.
All right. Psych, any final thoughts to throw out on Manchurian Candidato?
Yep. I think the film shows his ages in places, of course, but it's a good film for its time, and genre defining, so important to watch.
All right. So speaking of genre defining, I don't know if this is really quite as much, but it definitely is part of that early wave of popular sci-fi. Next week, or next episode, I should say more correctly, we'll be watching Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That's Steven Spielberg. I believe, and in the last episode, Bosco used this opportunity to talk about how Jaws was shit, and
Jaws was shit. If anybody fucking watches Jaws, it's about an alcoholic. You know what you talk about alcoholics? You don't talk about none, because alcoholics suck, man. I don't know. What was my argument last time?
You said literally Jaws was shit, and I said you're wrong. We wrapped up.
I have more reasons why it's shit.
You can save that for the Jaws podcast.
The Jaws podcast. Why is it on there? Oh god, icky.
Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us, and may I just say that the 2 people joining me today, and also all of you listeners, are the kindest, bravest, warmest, and most wonderful human beings I've ever known in my life. Goodbye.
Bullshit, honestly. By the way, if you were watching the movie, that's a quote from it.
Going out of my head over you, out of my out of my head, day and night, night and day and night, wrong or right.
Is this supposed to be? Is this actual scene from the movie? Prince.
What? Where'd you send it? Skype chat?
Yeah. Is this actually part of it? Is the movie supposed to be?
Yes, this is Meryl Streep and Liv Schreiber. Yeah, and he dances with her, and then watch what happens.
Is this music supposed to be?
What the hell? My God.
Oh my God.
Wow. Come on now, this is bad.
See? What did I fucking tell you guys?
Oh my God.
I said no matter how poorly you thought the fucking ending
No,
was.
Manchurian Candidate is art. This is that movie was art. I never mind. I take back everything.